shoes on my feet and the heart in my chest, Lord. Just keep me beating for a couple of days so I can get this paycheck, keep these damn bills paid. They try to say we got it made, Lord.
Hey guys, welcome back to Down South Farming. Today we are actually back at Coldwater Planting Company, which is where y'all saw a lot of me hanging out with Hendrick and some of those guys early in the spring. If you watch him on YouTube, it's Mississippi Farmer. We're actually in some of the corn stuff that we did some of the Monty's trial work on back in the spring with the carbon sugar and some of those products. Like I said in the video a couple of days ago where I updated y'all to kind of let y'all know what the plans were for the upcoming couple months, bringing in Brandon as a co-creator to boost the channel and get some more insight. I wanted to step out here and kind of talk a little bit about a trial that we're fixing to dive into on this farm from a residue management standpoint. So we are in the Mississippi Delta. Residue management isn't really something we talk about a lot down here just because we have very active microbiology in our soils. We stay warm all winter for the most part. If we get a hard freeze, it's an anomaly. It's not something that happens every year. Hell, it's not something that happens every 3 years for the most part. With those warmer soil temperatures, the more active microbiology, what we see is a lot of this stover breaks down on its own. So what we're really looking at in this trial is not so much a residue management from a stubble breakdown standpoint, but from a nutrient return standpoint. A lot of what we see from nutrient return out of corn stover and even bean stubble and things like that is that those nutrients hold over for a little bit longer, especially if you're in the Midwest or even the Boot Hill, Missouri, some places like that where they have what we would consider really good soil fertility. In my personal opinion, our fertility here in the Mississippi Delta is just as good as some of those places. The one differentiating factor, like we just said, is that our soil stays so warm. So as our biology stays active, we don't build organic matter quite as quickly. The organic matter that we do build, we're using it up, we're recycling it as those nutrients go back into the next crop. So whereas in the Northeast where it might take, or even the Midwest where it might take a year or two for this stover to break down all the way and all of those nutrients be recycled back into the soil, here we see the benefits out of those nutrients coming out of the stover the next year. So say this was a 250 bushel corn crop here in this field, it's going to be beans come back in here next year. We're probably going to grow 70, 75 bushel beans out here. The reason for that is because we all know we're not coming out, we're not putting fertilizer on our beans for the most part. We're not doing anything other than really an inoculant, maybe a nematicide, a fungicide, and furrow. So what we're seeing is all of the nutrients that are recycled out of this corn stover here going directly into that bean crop for production in the next year. So what we're hoping to see is a little bit higher output, if you will, of nutritional elements going back into the soil profile other than what we'd normally get. As you can see, we're probably 45 to 50 days post-harvest. I actually just pulled this up. I'll walk a little bit closer to the camera, but we're not really getting a lot of breakdown inside this stalk. Our root system is still pretty well intact. You know, there's not a lot going on here as far as breakdown. So hopefully this residue management product that we're going to put out is going to help start breaking this down a little bit more efficiently and a little bit quicker so that we start seeing that nutrient return a little bit faster. Another thing that we're going to worry about, and I'll show you a different stalk here. This is another one that really hasn't started to break down. But as we get close to this, what would have been the soil line where the root system starts, we'll start to see kind of a pinkish orangish tint here. What that is fungal growth of fungus that has inhabited this corn stalk. It's using it as its home to overwinter. So as this corn stover doesn't break down, we'll start to see that fungal growth during the spring as it starts to bloom and evolve, start inoculating the next crop. So if we can break this down a little bit more effectively, what we'll see is we essentially destroy the habitat or the home of that fungal growth or fungus. So as that happens, it doesn't have anywhere to live, it doesn't have anywhere to overwinter. It essentially is going to dissipate or die throughout those winter months, and we won't see that fungal problem in the spring when we come back with our next crop. So a couple different things we're looking at here. I'll stay in touch with y'all over the next couple weeks and next couple months about what's going on here, what we're starting to see, how things are looking. Really, if nothing else, we'll get a visual test out of it on how fast this breaks down versus the check, which is going to be another 20 rows if this were rode up that way. So we'll stay in touch. We'll see what happens. All right, guys, back in the truck. Just finished up our soil samples here. We got 4 different samples that we're going to send off. We're actually going to be looking at 2 different samples here. One's just going to be our basic soil nutrition like you typically get if your co-op or your fertilizer company came out and did your sample. And the other thing we're going to be looking at is the soil health sample. So what we're really looking at in the soil health sample is it's going to show us plant available versus non-plant available nutrition. So what the plant's able to readily uptake and use versus what's kind of, we'll say, tied up in our soil profile. So y'all hang out with us over the next couple weeks and months. We're going to touch back on this a couple times throughout that time frame and see what's going on from a visual aspect as far as how well the residue is breaking down. And also we'll be coming back to these soil samples to see what we've got as a baseline versus what we get at the end of what I'd call the trial, which is going to be pretty much right before the planter rolls through the field in the spring. If y'all are interested more in residue management and kind of how we work with that here in the Southeast, there's actually, if y'all haven't noticed already or y'all haven't heard, there is a podcast coming out that's going to follow along pretty closely with this channel called Another Round. I'll link it in the bio, even put a link here on the video for y'all to go to that page and look at that. But there's a residue management podcast coming out over the next couple weeks that will touch a little bit more in depth on how we manage residue here in the Southeast and what we look for, products that we may use, things like that. So if you haven't already, go give that Another Round podcast a follow. That'll be me and Brandon talking. And then, of course, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to this channel. Drop a comment in the comments below and kind of let us know what you think about the videos, what you'd like to see from the channel in the future. We're always open to ideas on what we could do or what we could even be doing better. So thanks again for watching. We'll see y'all later.